Now move to the Sullivan Birth Registration Bill, and the question is that the preamble stand part. I call Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's a pleasure to stand to discuss and debate the Sullivan Birth Certificate Bill during this committee stage of the bill, Mr. Chairman. It's been equally interesting listening to the previous speakers on the previous item on tonight's agenda. It's the opportunities for private bills or local bills to come through is a very significant part of parliamentary work because it affects small numbers of people. Most of our legislation, of course, is designed to embrace populations, or large parts of populations, or certain sections of them. Whereas these bills, this one in particular, affects one individual, the Sullivan Birth Certificate Bill. And it does so, Mr. Chairman, in a very particular way, because it provides an identity for a person, an identity which was in fact lost and has now been restored, or will be restored by the passing of this bill as it completes its various stages. I was reflecting earlier on what might contribute to this bill to assist the understanding of people who are not familiar with the technicalities of it, and it's a very technical bill, but to give it a sort of personal reflection, I thought this evening of how fortunate I've been to travel earlier in my life, covering large parts of the South Pacific Basin, in particular Papua New Guinea, which was a country I spent a lot of time in and fell in love with. But I was constantly reminded of the fragility of personal identification. Because in that country, and there are plenty of other countries in the world probably, but less and less all the time, where people don't carry personal identification in the form of passports, driving licenses, or that sort of thing. Their identity is within their own family, within their wantong, within their groups of people. They are identified because they are known as individuals. And that's very, very fragile, especially when rural comes into urban community. In this particular case, this bill would require the Registrar General of Births, Deaths and Marriages to record the details of Rowan Sullivan's deceased mother on her birth certificate. Following the Marriage Definition of Marriage Amendment Act 2013, same-sex couples are able to marry and therefore to apply to jointly adopt children. If Rowan Sullivan's birth mother had been able to marry her long-term partner, this situation would not have arisen. Ultimately, this bill will make what is a matter of fact, that Diane Sullivan and Doreen Shields are Rowan Sullivan's parents, it will make them a matter of law. And Mr. Speaker, I would suggest to anyone who says, but why are we doing this through Parliament? This seems to be a lot of time being spent on an individual. Just try not having these things right in your life. I would suggest it's a breakfast, lunch and dinner job. It's going to be affecting you all the time. To give listeners and people who are in the chamber the detail of how this happened, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go through a list of the events. Rowan Sullivan's parents from birth were Diane Sullivan, that's her birth mother, and Diane Sullivan's female partner, Doreen Shields. Diane Sullivan died in 2010 when Rowan was 17 years old. Doreen Shields chose not to adopt Rowan while Diane Sullivan was still alive, as this, believe it or not, would have required the removal of Diane Sullivan, that's the birth mother. It would have required Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I seek leave for all provisions to be taken as one question.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection. The question is that clauses 1 to 4 stand part. Lewis Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.